In 1998, a family trip through the Caribbean quickly turned into a nightmare as one of the adult children to Ron and Iva Bradley went missing in the early morning hours. After a quick search, a series of frustrating events unfolded that left the case unsolved to this day. So today, we discuss the mysterious disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. This is Red Web. Welcome back and Happy New Year, Task Force. This is another episode of Red Web, the podcast that covers all sorts of unsolved mysteries, true crime, and, of course, the supernatural. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Disappearance cases. These are classic cases, man. These are the ones
Classic,
I saw
yeah.
on TV a lot growing up. What was it? Unsolved mysteries? Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
These are the big ones for sure. It's going to be rough just because a lot of times it's just the person goes missing and is never seen again, which is just so wild to think about, right? An actual human body just gone.
Gone.
Like either gone to nature in time or possibly still alive under a new identity somewhere else. Like, you don't know. The world is so vast, so big, but to just be like, never seen again that's an interesting way to go.
100%. And honestly, there's something about disappearances that feels so intimate and so relatable. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but when you hear a lot of other true crime cases, there's some sort of like disassociation that the mind is able to do where you kind of want to protect yourself and go, oh, could never happen to me. But there's something, at least to me, when you hear about a disappearance case, whether it be of the supernatural variety, we've talked about missing 411 cases in the past, people disappearing in the blink of an eye, or cases like this that are a little bit more true crime where there's a lot of sort of theories that try to answer what's going on. For some reason, it feels a lot more like, oh my God, that's just absolutely terrifying that could happen to anybody, anywhere, including yourself. There's something fundamentally strange and terrifying about that, but also morbidly, mysteriously interesting because it's almost like you want to avoid it. You want to learn from it. You want to find this person. And yet the answers like sand in your hands just kind of slip through your grasp.
I completely agree. It's just wild and baffling.
Yeah. And this case is no different. A lot of details, a lot of frustration. Fredo, you and I have covered over 200 episodes from aliens and ghosts to true crime and disappearances and murders. And unfortunately, like within all of that, there's this underlying belly, this foundation of frustration where you just go, and yes, it's a lot of it's with hindsight. You get this knowledge, but you look back and you go, oh, if only this, or just like, why that? Why did that happen? And this case is unfortunately riddled with that frustration.
Oh, remember the case, and we bring this up often, where it's just like the case where the neighbor just went all through the house, which is wild.
They're just fumbling through, taking up little collectibles, photographing.
Insane.
Yeah.
Vastly infuriating. And then in a lot of cases where just body parts go missing.
Dude.
But they're in like the hands of like the police department or the right people, and then it just was missing. I was like, yeah, that's wild to just have like, you know, it's not like, oh, I ordered something off of Amazon or eBay and it went missing. It's like, no, we are the police department. We ship something and we have no idea where this limb is.
Right. You don't have some sort of FedEx tracking identification insurance policy for that, you know?
Yeah.
Christian, do you remember what case it was when I believe it's always skulls that go missing, but I believe it was like a skull or multiple were in the hands of the police, like Fredo's saying. They were headed towards an investigative office or some sort of...
This is the one I was talking about.
Yeah, and they were basically going to do an autopsy in some way to analyze, and they just disappeared.
Go ahead and shift through the 200 plus cases.
He's filing right now. I can hear him rapidly going through all the folders. I want to give him a second because that's a big thing to try to dive into and remember. But while he's looking into that, I want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon members, our task force over at redwebpod.com, our #1 support system. You are our ivory cane that we lean upon, you know, like in Jurassic Park, he's got that nice walnut staff with the little mosquito thing and the amber at the top. Task force, that's you. And we're the crotchety old man leaning on it.
And just suck out the blood life.
Look at the blood life.
Keep us young.
Again, it is the best way to support us now that we're coming up on it. Almost a year of independence. It's a few months away.
Jesus.
A stone's throw away. It's weird to think about time, dude.
Time goes fast, man.
But yeah, you can also go the direct route, patreon.com/redweb. There you will see all sorts of old favorites from this podcast uploaded to the exclusive ad-free RSS podcast feed. You also have exclusive shows like Movie Club, where Fredo and I and the team break down anything from horror movies, from classic to crap. We have store discounts. We have bonus content, all sorts of goodies. We got our research outlines up there if you want to hear from Jillian more, all sorts of things like that. But with that said, I want to give a huge shout out to some task force members in the Buff Science crew. We have so buff, their brains are rippling with veins. We got Ryan Riley, Zarlez or Zarley, and Amnaphy. And of course, our monthly squonk shout outs, Zarathustra, Sabrina Hall, Alex Tuck, and Andy Schrock, just to name a few.
Look, shout them out, but don't look at them. They'll melt.
Listen, if you look too hard, they're just going to melt right away. Or as Fredo likes to say, buckle at the knees, but then they become little puddles.
Yeah, little puddles. It's just
acknowledge, but don't regard.
Look, when you're walking around Task Force HQ and you just see a little puddle of water, you don't quite know what it is. Maybe someone spilled some water. Maybe someone looked at a squonk passing by. I don't know.
Truly. I mean, we're both clumsy, but also we're being witnessed a lot. There's cameras all through that place. So you might just see someone spontaneously not combust. What is water?
Liquefy.
You have a spontaneously liquefaction happens,
sure,
you know?
We'll go with that.
Okay, so I double checked, and the case you're thinking of is the Hinterkaifeck murders. That's the one where the victims' skulls were in possession of the authorities, and they sent them to clairvoyance as part of the investigation. But then later on, as part of the investigation process, the skulls were somehow lost.
Right.
That was it.
My brain it's become mush. I can't remember anything anymore.
I mean, it is a lot of cases, but also just like, damn, man, how do you mess that up?
Yeah. Dude, I my brain's been rattled recently. This is going to be a little meta for the task force. We're recording this back in December, and I am riddled with this UAP phenomenon that's going on right now.
What?
People predicting an aerial battle that's going to happen.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's supposed to be some sort of alien battle in the skies today of all days, December 3rd. You can't
just spring this shit on me.
Well, you know, we got different algorithms. You're over there looking at X-Men's, and I'm over here looking at Alien Men's.
Well, just in case the mutations start happening, we're ready.
Yeah. True. All right. Now, to set the tone, this is one of those times where I do want to remind everybody that there are sensitive topics in the description in case you need those. But with that, I do want to dive into the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. It was March 1998. Amy Lynn Bradley, who was 23, joined her parents, Ron and Iva, along with her younger brother, Brad, who was 21, on a cruise ship vacation through the Caribbean. They boarded the Royal Caribbean ship known as the Rhapsody of the Seas at the cruise ship port in Puerto Rico on March 21st. From there, the planned voyage was simple. It was to head to Aruba, then Curacao, St. Martin, and then finally St. Thomas. And honestly, just putting a little bit of myself into this episode a little bit, I think another thing that makes this so terrifying is this is the time frame where my parents would certainly be going on Royal Caribbean cruises. This is certainly the area that they would save up to do that in. Aruba, St. Thomas, St. Martin certainly come to mind. They would always bring me back a shirt from one of these islands. And so, like, for me anyway, every few years they would be able to do that. I would stay home with the grandpa, you know, kicking it. Yeah. But I think there's just something to me personally. In Task Force, I'm curious if it's a similar thing, but it was a very 90s destination. And so I can definitely see my parents going to a place like this.
It's always a little weird whenever we're covering something and it hits that close to home in some way, shape, or form when you have something that's so vivid in your mind.
Absolutely. Now, we do have an image of this cruise ship. We're going to reference this throughout this episode. But Fredo, I have it for you here just so you can get an idea of what the ship looks like. I mean, we have some monster cruise ships nowadays. What is it called? The Idol of the Sea or whatever. But this one, still very large. You can see people down by the side of it. They look like ants.
Oh my God, this thing is massive.
And that's a 90s ship.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, now they have, I've seen like photos. They have like full on theme parks on cruise ships. It's insane.
They got slip and slide and water coasters on these things. It's the icon of the sea. I don't know if you've seen that thing.
Yeah, you know, when you're on the water on a boat and you want to get wet in a pool on top of said boat.
If you could ride a boat on your boat, that's become a problem.
Like, isn't it super windy? Like,
I would imagine. I've never been on one.
I know. I've never been on a cruise. I have very bad motion sickness. I know that being on a big ship like this, they've got like stabilizers, and I've heard it's not that bad, but like, I don't know, man. If I was to take like a week cruise and then it'd be like hour one, I get motion sickness, it would just be hell for a whole week.
Oh, God. Yeah. Just several days of terror, just like that nausea is just like terrible.
But it does seem fun going on like a cruise and then stopping at different destinations. And
yeah.
The
little sampler platter of vacation, you know? So looking at this ship, you can tell it's quite large. And this ship itself has 10 decks, 999 rooms, and it has room and space for over 2,500 people on board. I assume that's passengers, crew members, and the captain, who always has a big white beard.
Oh, yeah. Jeez. Always. The silver fox.
Now, on the evening of March 23rd, so this is just a few nights into the cruise, the ship is docked at Curacao. However, the gangway, the platform people walk on and off to disembark this cruise ship, was up. So they're at the port, but everybody is on the ship. I think that's important at this junction. That night, Brad and Amy decided to stay up late. They were enjoying themselves, as they should. They were celebrating at a Mardi Gras-themed party on board the vessel. Drinks are flowing. They're dancing with other passengers and crew members, in particular, dancing with members of the ship's band, the Blue Orchid. In fact, there is footage of the events captured by a videographer, Chris Fenwick. Some of this footage actually shows Amy dancing with the band's bass player, Yellow, aka Alistair Douglas. So I do have for you at the very bottom of our personal little chat here a YouTube link. If you want to click on that, it shows photos of her at that dance party, as well as some very short snippets, just so you can get an idea. Task Force, as always, with these videos or images, we'll post the image version on our social medias at RedWebPod or in the YouTube upload of the episode.
Yeah, she's got, it's a white woman. She's got short hair. She played basketball. That's freaking awesome. And oh man, yeah, there's just like a ton of photos of like her on the ship. It looks like, and then there's just cuts to like the family members just kind of showing different photos that they took.
Yeah.
Dang.
Just any other old night, you know?
Any other old night. And to have something so like vivid is be like, oh, here's the photos, and here's like, unlike some of the stories that we cover, it's like, oh, we don't really have photos. It's like, no, here's photos of the night of, or like the week of, and here's this person in motion in videos when they're in school, and it makes it that much more tangible and relatable, and it connects emotions and stuff.
It builds those emotions, but it also shows that there is firm evidence to lay the groundwork, which only, to me, makes it more frustrating when the answers don't come. Because in addition to the footage, which I think is phenomenal to have, we have evidence of this person here at this place. Cabin door records show that Brad returned to the family's cabin at 3:35 a.m. So again, we're building a very vivid image of what's going on, the timeline that night. And he later told investigators that Amy arrived just 5 minutes later. Her card probably wouldn't have swiped, he would have opened it, etc. So it won't show up on the system, but this is what he's saying. And Amy and Brad continued hanging out in the room on the balcony. Their parents are asleep inside, so they're on the balcony of the suite and looking at the reference of the ship. To have a balcony, you must be pretty high up on the ship. The lower rooms are just windows, so we're talking pretty high up, and you'll see why when we get to the theories, why I wanted to point that out. But Brad goes back inside to kind of kick it for the night, get some shut-eye, but Amy stays out, and she ends up sleeping on the balcony that night. Whether it be for fresh air or she's enjoying herself or what have you, that's where she decided to spend the night. It's warm enough, they're in port, so why not, right? Now, Ron, the father, recalls waking up somewhere between 5:15 and 5:30 a.m. He decides to check on his children. He recalled that he could see Amy's lower half through the door window as she was sleeping outside. Now, interestingly, just like a father would, has those instincts right.
Yep.
He woke up again, less than an hour later, around 6 a.m., and at this point he recalls having a, quote, funny feeling. And so he gets up, he looks around, why am I having this feeling? And he notices Amy was no longer there. In fact, you mentioned Unsolved Mysteries earlier, and this is where he was actually interviewed. And I quote him when I say, quote, "About 6 o'clock a.m., something awoke me again. I got up, looked out on the balcony, and the balcony door was open about 14 to 16 inches, and Amy wasn't on the deck. And I had a little funny feeling at that time because it was unlike her to be up that early in the morning. Upon closer inspection, Amy was in fact gone, and of note to him, along with her cigarettes and lighter, though her shoes were still left behind. So I don't know what the rules on a cruise ship are, if you're allowed to smoke, especially in the 90s, on the balcony or not, but he noticed that those were gone, which would indicate that she was maybe taking a smoke break, that she might have left for that, but why leave the shoes is what he's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like if it's a warm night, who cares? You know, go out, no shoes.
Listen, a clean hotel, a cruise ship, I'm hitting the sandals. My bare tootsies are not touching any of that carpet material. That's just me.
I'm with you. I do not like touching the carpet material in a hotel whatsoever, like at all.
Listen, carpet's got memories, and they would tell you a couple horror stories.
Yep. And so, like, I'm good, but there's a lot of people who don't care.
True.
And there's a lot of people, especially when they're on vacation and it's like a tropical place or somewhere warm. People are just like, oh man, I'm on vacation. I'm barefooting around. I'm like on the deck.
I'm sweaty. I'm gross. We're all sweaty. You know, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's probably what Ron is thinking at this time, though he is definitely alert. He's definitely a little worried. Not to put words in his mouth, but I can definitely kind of feel that energy from his interview. And Ron, at this point, is searching for his daughter in the common areas around the cruise ship, but he cannot find her. After searching for some time with no results, he comes back and he tells the family that Amy appeared to be missing. From there, the Bradleys immediately informed the cruise ship staff that Amy was missing, and then they requested that they page her, i.e. kind of come over the intercom of the ship and ask for Amy to show up to the nearest desk, let a cruise member know, come back to the room, what have you. Nothing to say that she's missing yet, but basically saying if Amy Lynn Bradley would do X, Y, and Z. Kind of like when I hung out in the electronics section of Target and Mom went shopping and I never showed up. I was still playing the GameCube demonstration there. Yeah, they'd come over the overcom and say, hey, listen, your mom's waiting, let's go. So something of that caliber. And they also urged, intelligently, the cruise ship staff to not lower the gangplank to Curacao. Listen, this is like still early in the morning. I don't know how long Ron went searching, so I don't know what the delay of discovery around 6 a.m. to this next point in time, about 2 hours later comes, but suffice to say there's some sort of delay in discovery to let's make the announcement. But the Bradleys felt that the staff were being a little reluctant to page Amy. However, they did so, thankfully, at 6:50 a.m. So, again, about an hour, 50 minutes after that loose discovery phase. Now, despite the pleas from the family, the ship finished docking, they lowered the gangplank, and by 8 a.m., most of the passengers had disembarked from the ship for the day. So within a 10-minute span, this ship completely emptied. If she was here, if she was on the loose, what have you. Again, we'll explore these things in the theories.
Okay.
The vectors for disappearance just became near infinite. We had a closed system, but now anybody can walk off the ship. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but Christian, when we were kind of doing the research and asking questions, had a very good one, which was, were there any checkpoints set up on the dock or in the area? And again, it didn't seem that the staff was really taking it super seriously yet. They had no reason to totally understand that this was a full disappearing missing persons case, I should say. So no, there were no, to our understanding, no checkpoints set up. So they've done the paging now, asking for Amy. We've lowered the gangplank and the ship is empty. At this point, the staff is refusing to inform passengers that Amy is missing. And this was around noon. The family is saying, listen, we need to let the passengers know. We need eyes on scene. We need witnesses if anybody has seen her, especially now that we've opened up to the island. They're asking around noontime and they're saying, no, we don't want to worry any of the passengers. We don't want to create unnecessary panic, etc.
Right. I mean, you still got to keep order. You don't want to send everything into chaos. People start spiraling.
Sure.
It's just hard though. That's a lot of people to keep track of, and you're docking in places. And so like, even then it's not immediately oh, something nefarious happened to this person. It could just be like maybe they undocked and then they didn't get back in time, or
right.
like,
or maybe they didn't hear it, or maybe whatever.
There's just so many other options as opposed to something that is evil taking place here.
Totally. And this is where I say it's frustrating, mainly in hindsight, because you're like, what could have been prevented and stopped and seen. But thinking of it from the crew's side of things, maybe they have experience with this. Maybe this happens frequently where more benign disappearances happen where, someone was just somewhere else on the ship, someone having a good time, and eventually they show up. I don't know. I don't want to, like you said, think too ill of the crew staff right now, but also I know where we're headed, right?
Yep.
So eventually the crew searched the commons for Amy, though they did not search staff rooms. Some sources claim that they also did not search passenger rooms either, while others state that they did. Either way, they are investigating the ship, but there are some blind spots, so to speak.
Right.
And unfortunately, the ship's security system did not record when passengers exited their rooms, so they could not be certain of when she left the room or not. So this is more of a key system. When they buzz in and out, they can kind of get that in the system. I was asking Jillian if there was any sort of CCTV activity going on, anything like that, because I couldn't find any myself, and unfortunately not. I mean, today you'd probably expect that. There's cameras everywhere.
Today, cameras everywhere.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how I feel about that with cameras being everywhere. It's capturing a lot of things that shouldn't happen, so, them ne'er-do-wells are getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, I can't go for a walk in the neighborhood without everybody getting the goss,
Exactly.
Every front door gets like a 15-second snippet.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. The start of the year is the perfect time to get organized, set your goals, and prioritize what matters most, like financial wellness, which feels more important than ever, right? Thanks to Rocket Money, those goals can be achievable, and they show you all of your subscriptions in one convenient place, and they help you easily cancel the ones that you have forgotten about, maybe the ones that you don't want to keep paying for, all in that convenient location. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate to lower your bills for you. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you, so they'll deal with the customer service so you don't have to. You kick back, maybe you're drinking a little eggnog by the fire, and they're doing all the business for you. I really appreciate this service, this app. It's so convenient. I love it combines all my spending vectors into one location so I can see it all in one spot, and I love the fact that they can do all this cancellation for me. Love it. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. rocketmoney.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. It's 2005, and a new year means new opportunities. One of those opportunities, starting your own business. And Shopify is there to help you because the best time to start your own business is right now. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates all in their website. There's no coding or design skills necessary. I love that feature because I'm HTML, baby. I'm old school. So the fact that you can make your site super easily and simply, they have all these nice templates. It's wonderful. All you need to do is drag and drop. Their powerful social media tools let you connect to all your channels and create shoppable posts and help you sell everywhere people scroll. Shopify makes it easy to manage your growing business. They help you with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on the important stuff like growing your business. Task Force, let me ask you a question. What happens if you don't act now? Are you going to regret it? What if someone beats you to that great idea that you're sitting on? Don't kick yourself when you have to hear this again in a year, because you didn't do anything right now. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. I really enjoy, again, just how easy it is to make your storefront with Shopify. As you guys know, Red Web used to use Shopify as their storefront, and so I loved how convenient it was to set up codes, put all the store photos up, and make the store exactly the way you want it. That's important for your brand. It needs to feel and look the way you want it. But for you, Task Force, established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redweb, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/redweb to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/redweb. But coming back to the ship and the search, the family did eventually leave the ship, right? They stayed on for several hours working with staff, doing the search, and they decided to move their search onto the land looking for their daughter. Unfortunately, and again, I don't know if this creates more vectors or not, but the Rhapsody of the Sea continued on its journey, leaving both Curaçao and the Bradleys behind as it headed on to St. Martin and eventually St. Thomas. This is where the FBI joined in the investigations, along with a Royal Caribbean lawyer, the day after the initial report. This is about March 25th is when both of those two parties get involved.
Okay.
While on board, they reportedly used search dogs in an attempt to locate Amy. However, they could not search the ship itself at first because the lawyer argued that they had no jurisdiction. So again, we have this kind of rocky moment where time is really slipping. The more time goes on, the more vectors to search are created. But on that note too, we have other authorities involved, right? You're in the Caribbean. A lot of these islands are, I don't even know what the term would be, but part of or related to other nations, right? You have the British Virgin Isles, you have Puerto Rico, which is kind of a state of the United States, but not officially. I'm ignorant, so I don't know what the name of that term is.
I mean, the thing is, you get all these jurisdictions, though, and then
exactly.
they end up getting in each other's way, surprisingly enough.
Absolutely. But in this case, you kind of have layers of jurisdiction all coming in to kind of help, hopefully, try to figure things out. But here we go. It's a commonwealth. It's a territory of the United States, Puerto Rico in particular. But this is where the Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard jumped into the case, and they spent about 4 days searching for Amy Bradley in the waters around the ship. Though when looking, I couldn't see if we could find exactly where they searched. There wasn't like a map. I wasn't exactly sure when that took place. All I could really see across many different sources was that they searched around the ship. And of course, that ship is moving. And so I was like, are you searching where it was, or are you searching around it currently? Like, there's a few loose ends there. So that's the kind of investigation phase. But before we move into the theories, of which there are many to explore, I do want to talk about some interesting sightings. Because since the disappearance, multiple people over several years have reported seeing Amy Lynn Bradley. So let's dive in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is where things get very interesting.
Oh, I want to know about the. Okay, yeah, no, let's just dive into this. Very, very rarely do we get this.
And oftentimes, when we do, it's those goofballs that are like, I did it, or yeah, I saw something, but I didn't. You know, it's just those again, the muddy in the waters.
Yeah.
So immediately after the time frame of her disappearance, 2 women, including Crystal Roberts, claimed to have seen Amy getting on an elevator around 6 a.m. on the 24th. Again, this is the morning of her disappearance, and this lines up with the time frame her father, Ron, had recalled that morning. Another witness saw her at about this time and claimed that she was with the band's bass player, Alistair Douglas, aka Yellow, and according to NBC News, this individual said, quote, I saw Amy and the band member walk over and up to the next deck above us, and about 10 minutes later, he came walking around by himself.
Oh.
End quote. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and address it now because this feels like we have so much, but we also admittedly have so very little. These are people that saw her image, say, oh, I saw somebody that looked like that hop on the elevator, but there really isn't much else to say. You know, it's not like they jumped in the elevator with this stranger and then went with them and had a story to tell. It's more of a, I saw this and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just literally like in passing. But you get enough of those, maybe you could put some kind of timeline together.
Exactly. Right. And so 2 people that next day is fascinating to me. Now, just before we get too far in, I do have the missing person poster, so you can get both an image that you've already seen, but also some potential future renderings of what Amy Lynn Bradley might look like at 42 with different hairstyles, as well as a previous photo of her with kind of an 80s blowout. And again, Task Force will share that.
Oh yeah, they always do that. It's like, this is what they might look like aged up.
So you have past, present at the time of the case, and then current.
Interesting.
Kind of renderings.
Then dark hair, blown out, 80s style for sure, like you said.
But you have the description, the classic thing that you see when, you know, you're just putting out the call to anybody who might see someone like this, and you try different hairstyles.
Yep, FBI logo, person. Name, first, middle, last, a date, 3 pictures, description of the pictures, a description, and you got hair, height, sex, date of birth, place of birth, eyes, weight, race. Yeah, detailed.
Yeah. Now, this is where the sightings jump several months forward. We're in August 1998. 2 Canadian tourists claim to have seen Amy on a beach in Curacao. Again, this is the island that they had stopped at where she disappeared. Now, at this time, these Canadian tourists did not know that Amy was missing. And when they were kind of recounting this, they described her unique tattoos. A Tasmanian devil spitting a basketball. You know, she played basketball.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, man. Taz, one of my faves, Looney Tunes.
That was a good one.
She also had a Chinese character, or what's called a Hanzi, and a gecko tattoo. They reported that she was flanked by 2 men and also claimed, quote, she looked frightened, like she was about to say something when one of the guys motioned her away, end quote. The next sighting wouldn't come for several more years, and it comes from an anonymous Navy officer who claimed to have met Amy Bradley, again, at Curacao in a brothel in 1999. This is the year that he recounted his experience, but it's not the year that he made this report. We'll talk about why there was a big delay, but before I kind of want to give his encounter.
Yeah, dang, that's a long time, long break.
Mm-hmm. So here at this brothel, this woman that he claims is Amy Bradley says this, quote, "My name is Amy Bradley, please help me." And he told her to go to the naval ship, but she said, "No, you don't understand, please help me. My name is Amy Bradley." Due to this commotion, 2 men seemingly showed up out of nowhere and removed her from the brothel bar. The anonymous officer kept this story secret until after he retired several years later. I couldn't find exactly when. Yeah, and that's when he realized that Amy Bradley was a real missing person, because he didn't know that at the time. He learned it many years later on when he was reading a magazine. A few complications here. First off, from what we could find, he only told the family. And second, again, like I said, we're struggling to find when exactly he made this report, because his story of his encounter was in 99, but we're not sure when he retired and reported this. And the reason why he kept it secret was because he himself was not authorized to be where he was. He wasn't authorized to be at a brothel, maybe off the ship. Yeah, and which is probably also why he wanted to maintain anonymity even when he did report it.
Right, because then it's just like he didn't know it was a missing person. He's doing something he's not supposed to be doing. So, you know, why put it on the line unless it's confirmed something that's worth putting your, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess like your job on the line.
Certainly. Again, with hindsight, you look at that and you go, God, just say something to someone though. You know, who cares? Just like help this person out. But in his world, he doesn't know.
That one's major hindsight though.
Exactly.
Especially because he had stuff on the line. So
100%. Yeah.
Oh man, but if you imagine just different world, different timeline where he did.
Yep. You hope something would have happened, you know. But again, having done enough of these cases, something else frustrating probably would have fumbled the ball, and I don't know. But with regards to this particular claim, it is worth mentioning that investigators have not verified it. And so again, I don't want to throw it out. I'm not going to say it's hearsay, it's made up, whatever.
Right.
But just have to put that out there to soften the claim a little bit, because we don't know. It hasn't been verified. Now jumping forward yet again several more years. In 2005, this is a brief one, a woman claimed to have seen Amy in a department store in Barbados, which is not too far away. It's another island nation nearby. And that's, like I said, very short, very simple. That's all we have. We'll come back to this a little bit, some circumstantial, anecdotal stuff in the theories around that, but it has to be said that none of these sightings, including the 99 sighting, have been confirmed by law enforcement. It's unclear if they led to any updates in the case or what have you, but they're still fascinating and they still offer a lot to think about, especially as we step into the theories. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. Every January brings you 365 blank pages waiting to be filled, okay? In 2025, maybe you're ready for a plot twist, or maybe there's a part of your story that you've been wanting to revise. You know, get in there, scrub out some of those old, nasty handwritings. You got better this year. Think of therapy as your editorial partner, helping you write new chapters and create the meaningful story that you deserve to live. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, empowering you to be the best version of yourself. I enjoy just how approachable BetterHelp makes it. They try to curate and find the right person for you, which is a big part of therapy, finding the right person who knows your needs and can speak to those needs. And BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And easily switch therapists at any time at no extra cost. Again, that's super important. You got to find the right person. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/redweb to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/redweb. But with that, let's dive in. Fredo, I know you have some gut instincts. I want to hear what you're thinking before we step in.
I mean, with like all to suspend my like grounded thoughts a little bit with all of these like sights and appearances, I feel like she kind of just wanted to jump ship for whatever personal reason. I know there were signs of distress in certain situations, but then to see her again and again, and then like out in public, you know, now recently talk about a department store, I feel like, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to be like, she was kidnapped and was taken hostage, and then now she's just hanging out at a department store, and she's still around years later.
Yeah, my gut says the same thing, though my heart wants to say something else, and it's worried for her. But you're right in the sense that if somebody did see her at a department store, there is a sense of new life. There's a sense of maybe if this person wanted to reach out to their family, that would be a chance to do it, right? Maybe not. There's a lot of complications and assumptions that I'm making with that. But yeah, it does feel like taking on a new life. And you're totally right, because that is the first theory that we're going to explain. No, not that you're right, but that's at least your gut check is on point. That's where we're going to start. We don't have obviously an answer, but that is the first theory, is that Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance was that of running away or leaving on her own decision, right? She may have that night, as the theory goes, slipped out of the cabin while her family was all asleep. To build on that idea, maybe she saw that her father was up and about, and when he got back in bed, she waited a beat before then slipping out. And maybe this is where he kind of picked up on that, which is why he woke up about a half hour later to discover she was gone. Who knows? Now, of course, once she slipped out, she would be seen by a few people, as we saw, and then maybe just ignored the paging by the ship's staff until the gangplank came down. At this point, she would have many opportunities to kind of just walk off and then stay, and maybe lay low for a little bit while her family is searching for her, what have you. And while she left many things behind, it's possible that she chose not to take anything with her. But this is where a few wrinkles come in. Her family argues that she would never do this, at least not without leaving a note. They had a very close relationship. She had also had a new job lined up to begin once the cruise ended, and she had purchased souvenirs for friends, indicating that she had at least some intention of coming home. Not only the job, but the souvenirs, but also the fact that she brought camera film, which would need to be developed. She wanted to make a collage of the photos from the trip. Again, that could be done in your new life, but still, like, she showed a lot of evidence that she intended to come back.
Yeah, intentions to like keep living her normal life.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, it's possible that she made a last-second decision, something changed, what have you. There's a lot of ways to cut this apple. That's not a thing people say, but, you know, a lot of people point to the fact that she stayed up late that night. She was partying the nights before. A lot of drinks were flowing. Maybe she met somebody. We're talking about Yellow from the band, this band member.
Right.
Maybe she changed her mind. And it's also, you know, possible that she was suffering from an undisclosed mental illness, which can certainly play into your mental faculties, your decision-making, what have you. And with that, some have also mentioned, and this is less of a runaway theory, but some have mentioned the possibility of suicide. But that's another theory. Like I said, the family firmly denies this. She didn't seem that type. She didn't show any other signs of that, in their opinion. But either way, there is no real evidence showing that she chose to leave her family behind, that she would have run away, but it does connect a few of the admittedly very loose dots.
I mean, do most people show signs? You know what I mean? If they were to do something so drastic as to take their own life or anything?
It's hard to say. I'm certainly no expert on the matter.
Right, yeah, I mean, neither of us are.
Some people do, some people don't. Sometimes they're very coded or very subtle, and so it would take a trained individual perhaps to see these things. So it's hard to say if this is an accurate claim or not, because we just don't know the situation well enough, you know?
No, I get it.
Moving on, the other immediate theory from the cruise ship staff themselves was that Amy Bradley unfortunately fell into the water and drowned, With this being the leading theory from the staff, it would likely explain their reluctance to want to raise the alarms and cause a panic because, as morbid as it sounds, it might be something that it just is. You know, it's unfortunate, it truly sucks, but it's like helpless. You know, if she fell off at some point and nobody knew.
Jesus.
We'll talk about a wrinkle for this in a bit, but there's a couple of statistics that I wanted to mention. And these are usually, again, addressing the wrinkle a little bit, statistics for ships on the go, when you're out at sea, not necessarily in port. So according to a 2020 study referred to as Death at Sea, Passenger and Crew Mortality on Cruise Ships, which is a truly heinous thing to need to study, but it is important to understand everything. Overboard incidents, whether it be falling or being pushed, is the leading cause for death of passengers at about 23% of all deaths.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, it's of all deaths, so I don't know what the actual death percentage is, but like, damn.
Yeah. Now, according to cruise ship injury lawyers, this is the stat that I had in the back of my mind, and I had to really research it to make sure it was accurate because, as it turns out, only about 17 to 25% of people that go overboard on a cruise survive.
Oof, it's that rough?
It's such a hideously low survival rate of anybody going overboard on a cruise ship. Now, again, this is where I reference the size of this ship. Not only falling that high would be like hitting concrete, and so you might have injuries, breakages, etc. But also, if the ship is moving, especially, you are just out there and you become the immediate needle in the haystack. And so even if they know to turn around and come look for you, it can become very difficult very, very quickly.
Oh man, how would they know?
And treading water is not an easy cardio task, honestly.
It's not, man. I mean, I swam in college and it took a lot of time and effort to build up the ability to tread water.
So as the theory goes, she was inebriated that night, and it's possible that she was smoking or perhaps even throwing up, again, we're theorizing here, over the balcony into the water down below. Perhaps she lost her balance doing either of these things, and this would explain why she disappeared without her shoes, but would have her cigarettes and lighter on her person.
Yeah, I'm not going nowhere near a balcony, man. I don't know, a strong wind hits or something. I mean, like...
Oh, don't even say that. Yeah, you're right. A wind?
I mean, dude, there's kids all over the running around. How do you police that? Like, how?
Yeah.
That's kind of terrifying now that I think about it.
Listen, task force at large, this is where I ask you, I want to see you in the Discord, and let me know if you've been on a cruise ship. And especially if you're an older member of the task force, you've been on these 90s cruise ships, are there different regulations? I got to imagine they got to be real safe now with like high bolstered railings. But here in the 90s, maybe it's the Wild West. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they didn't have such strict regulations like they do now, possibly. That just kind of seems like that's how it is nowadays, right? As like decades go by, it's like, well, actually, we should have made these rules in place and stuff.
Maybe. Sometimes it takes terrifying events like this to learn a bad lesson, and we fix it, you know? But this is where the wrinkles kind of come in, and they actually come from the Bradley family. They argue that Amy could not have drowned because of a couple reasons. One, the ship was so close to shore, and she was a good swimmer. Why wouldn't she just kind of swim her way there? And maybe she did. She was a trained and experienced lifeguard after all, and so why wouldn't she? However, again, even a professional swimmer can drown. I mean, you're not bulletproof at this point. And falling that large of a distance before hitting the water, it's entirely possible that one broken bone could set you up for just a really difficult time, even if you're not too far off the shore.
I mean, you only got, even for the most experienced swimmer, you only got so much energy in you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you're tired, you might be a little inebriated, a little disoriented from a fall. Yep. I mean, yeah. What's interesting is that Amy was reportedly very afraid of water and had to be convinced by the family to join in on this cruise ship vacation. She did not even want to stand close to the railing without holding on to something. And so this is where the family is also like, this doesn't really feel right, because she wouldn't be carelessly leaning over, putting herself into a position to fall or what have you. But all this said, the local Coast Guard did end up searching the waters for any sign of Amy, but unfortunately found none. And her body has never been recovered from the sea, and if this is what happened, it's very possible, almost guaranteed, that it never will be.
Oh, man. That's just like, it's chilling. You know what I mean?
It is. It truly is. And this leads us into probably the most chilling theory of them all, and you did tap into it a little bit earlier when kind of giving your gut check a little about the case, but This is where the Bradleys believe that Amy was kidnapped. And the motive behind this kidnapping is where the theory can kind of go into two different directions, both of which the family have expressed belief in. So many believe that someone may have then killed Amy after kidnapping her, though many others have suggested something even more nefarious, that she may have been forced into human trafficking or sex work.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, as we mentioned earlier, the anonymous Navy officer recounted, again at face value, that she was seen in a brothel, right?
Yeah. Oh God, scary.
It's very scary. I mean, I think this kind of Hollywoodifies it, and I don't mean to do that, but the movie Taken, I think, installed a very real fear into me that I was just ignorantly unaware of. I just didn't realize how prolific this kind of thing is, and it genuinely is so terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was people just being overly cautious, but I remember just even hearing like a couple of years ago, people talk about be careful when you're in, 6th Street, Austin, you're out drinking. There's the big, they close out all the streets, all these bars are lined up, and then you're just drinking, and then people are just like, make sure you're getting into the right Uber.
Dude, oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
I've heard terrifying stories, like you said, even here in Austin, where, I mean, and this is fact, right? This is dark stuff, where people are attempted to be pushed in or dragged in to Ubers that aren't theirs or what have you. It's a hideous world out there, man. Now, after exhausting all possible resources, the family began to look back at their trip for any inconsistencies. Now, this is where they started really thinking about the relationships that they've had, the encounters, and they felt the staff members on board had given Amy what they call special attention. While Ron and Iva were out at dinner, a crew member actually approached and asked for Amy by name and told them he wanted to take her out on a date to Carlos and Charlie's restaurant on land in Aruba. When they brought this up to Amy, of course, she responded with, "That feels a little creepy," creepy being her word. And Ron later discovered that restaurant, Carlos and Charlie's restaurant, was the same restaurant that a woman named Natalie Holloway disappeared at later on.
Oh my God.
In 2005, less than a decade later. And her case is very similar to Amy Bradley's.
So here's the thing too, right? Like if there is like human trafficking or stuff like that going on, like they're going to have a system set up. They're going to have like a whole crew, a process, like who's the middle person and who's this person. It's just disgusting, icky all over. But I mean, yeah, there's going to be all that.
Oh God, it feels so vividly like planned.
Gross. Yeah.
So later on, her brother, when also doing the same thing, kind of thinking back on the night, talking to authorities, Brad tells the authorities that Yellow, that band member, was dancing a little too close that last night he saw her, and that she had to actually tell him to, quote, back off a little bit. Yellow, the band member that we're talking about, later told CNN in an interview that he and Amy split up around 1 a.m. on that 24th, a few hours before she and Brad headed back to their cabin. Per her interview with Dr. Phil, the mother, Iva Bradley, contacted the cruise ship's photographer for any pictures of Amy that he took, right? He's on board the ship. He's just taking photos of all sorts of festivities happening that night. And he actually remembers photographing Amy and printing those photos out, though he could not explain why they had disappeared. Apparently, he couldn't find any trace of these photos despite his confidence in having seen her, having photographed her, having evidence. And on his own videographer's blog, he claims that his team was, quote, instructed by the ship, end quote, not to include any photos of Amy on the cruise video.
Wait, what?
To basically scrub her. Yeah. So I don't know if that's why they lost all photos and videos of her, but apparently, again, this is kind of hearsay, but apparently the cruise ship is like, we don't want her present in any of these videos. This is bad PR. Pull it.
What were they trying to do? Just like save face?
I think it's definitely save face for the brand.
Yeah.
You don't want a disappearance on your hands. You don't want to be, point to the carnival video where the person, there she is, went disappearing. But it is a little sinister feeling because now Iva herself is like, listen, I was looking for any evidence, and these photos might be evidence, what she did, who she saw, who was around, and it's all gone. Whether it was malicious intent or just like accidental PR, single-mindedness.
Yeah.
Accidental malicious, but
when do the authorities step in and like go, hey, that's evidence, give it up?
Right, you can't go deleting that. Yeah, I don't know. Now, with regards to Brad and Yellow, he also told investigators that Yellow approached him that morning, the morning Amy went missing, and offered his support. Now, after some time had passed, he probably said thank you and all of that, but it wasn't until a little bit later that he started to go, wait a minute, that felt a little odd, since Amy's disappearance had not yet been made public. So how would he know that she had disappeared yet when it's really just between the family and the staff? Though, it is arguable that rumors were spreading on the ship. Him being the ship's band member, some staff might have made their way to talking to him. Like, there's ways for him to find out, but I can see why it would sound a little strange for him to know ahead of time.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's just like, oh God, it's like another frustrating case in the sense that like now you just have this like company probably trying to save face, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, hey, we don't, this happened and it's unfortunate, but we shouldn't just trying to take a big PR hit for it.
Right. They seem to be focused on themselves, and the family feels like, yeah, that's strange that this enormous corporation isn't helping in the search. Why wouldn't they want to help? I feel like that would be the better PR, is helping figure this out. And this is where it leaves the family feeling that some of the employees of this corporation, of the cruise ship, what have you, are in on whatever's going on this kidnapping. But again, it could also be indirect malice where they are, to your point, just trying to clean up their PR, clearly not giving a crap about anybody else. That's heinous enough. But in doing so, it definitely makes them look a little bit more culpable. Either way, it's not great.
Yeah.
But the question of whether they're implicated or not, that's where I think the theory kind of leans on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like to some extent, And the thing is, it's not too far of a thought to be right. We have these very terrible people trying to be like, hey, we're trying to like capture people and hold them against their will. Like, let's talk to the people that are on these boats to try and get a system going. And so it's just gross. But
yeah,
I mean, how like you'd want someone that's there on, and scoping it out.
Yeah. I mean, this just reminds me that the lawyer was on board trying to stop the FBI. Like, get your sniffing dogs out of here. This is not your jurisdiction.
And it's like, come on, man. How much slimy is that?
Very, very. Now, this is where we jump forward in time from the case. It's 2005. And this is where the theory kind of ends on a maybe more positive note. It does kind of tie into some of the other theories, but the Bradley family were sent an image of a woman named Joss, Jas. The photo was a part of an advertisement campaign for adult vacations in Barbados, which is again where someone claims to have seen Amy Lynn Bradley working in a department store. And so the timing is kind of lining up. That's the same year, same island. And while it's difficult for them to see this photo, the reason why I bring it up is because the person in this photo, the woman in this photo named Jas, had such a resemblance to Amy Lynn Bradley that it kind of gave them hope. It gave the Bradleys a little bit of hope that she was still out there wherever she was, whether she decided to leave on her own or she escaped and laid low in Barbados under a fake name or what have you. Again, part of me is going, well, why wouldn't she reach out?
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to say. But again, this was the same year and location that Amy was supposedly seen in a department store.
You see, yeah, that's the thing, right? If they're just so freely out and about in a department store, I mean, is it Stockholm syndrome at that point where they're just like, this is my life and I'm okay with it? Or, like, how do you not?
Yeah, is it still a front kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be Stockholm syndrome, like, I guess this is just me now. Or it's like, are you working indirectly and your paycheck goes to some nefarious figurehead, Oh, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to end this theory, and this at least gives me a little bit more of a positive end because it is such a darker theory. Most of the evidence for this theory is based on hearsay. So, while it does again connect some of these loose dots, it's not backed wholly by evidence. None of these theories really are, as they are theories.
Yeah, they're just straight theories. Even then, you have some theories that are strong, but none of these are just like, here's a little mountain pile of evidence.
Right. There's no like, oh my God, this is it. Yes, it's technically unsolved, but this feels like it.
Right.
And Jillian went ahead and looked up a few things that I do want to kind of talk about. So data on human trafficking modes and transportation is quite low, but as she said here in our notes, according to the 2014 Urban Institute study of 122 survivors, yes, it's a smaller sample size, but it's the best that this institute is able to study, 3% of them occurred on cruise ships. Nothing to scoff at, but it is also a small percentage, which, again, it might weigh into how people believe the theory or don't believe the theory, but it is an interesting factoid. In addition to that, I do want to say that the National Human Trafficking Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-888-373-7888. And of course, the Center of Prevention of Abuse crisis line is also available at 1-800-559-SAFE, which is also 7233. In closing, Amy Lynn Bradley was never found and was declared legally dead in 2010, but her family has not given up hope. And so hopefully, maybe someday, if she's run off to a new life or what have you, perhaps she's still out there somewhere doing well and being okay, but we may never know.
Damn.
And that is the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley.
Damn. The cruise ships can be terrifying in any way, shape, or form.
100%.
But man, yeah, this is a classic missing persons case.
Yep. Enough evidence left behind to make you want to pull your hair out, to make you feel like you're on the road to answers.
Or even have some hope.
And have some hope. Absolutely. Then you feel rug pulled when they just kind of go nowhere. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, somebody saw her on the elevator. Oh, somebody saw her on the deck. And then it's period, right? It's just nothing else.
Right.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up here, our first episode of the year?
Oh, man, be safe.
Be safe, dude.
Be safe out there, man. Always be aware of your surroundings, and very, very little is worth putting yourself in a dangerous situation.
Well said. And to end on a kind of more positive note and a little bit more of a self shout out kind of lighthearted thing, Fredo, we just recorded earlier today and we just released last Friday on Patreon a new episode of Movie Club. It's a movie that I've referred to. This feels like a very hard twist. I just feel like,
oh no, you gotta brighten it up.
For my own heart,
you gotta brighten it up. You know what I mean? It's like if you watch a scary movie at night and then you need like a palate cleanser, you throw in some kind of, animated movie or something like that.
Right, exactly. I just wanted to address that because my heart is aching, Task Force. But we finally covered one of the movies I've referenced way too many times. It's the Disney Channel original movie, Don't Look Under the Bed. And we had a great time. Fredo, Jillian, and I recorded that one. It is up on patreon.com/redweb or redwebpod.com. That is our forever home, redwebpod.com. No matter what happens to the podcast, that will always be ours. That's how you always know how to find us. So go check that out. A little bit of levity for you. Join the task force and support the podcast. Get this thing ad-free and just know that you're supporting an independent company here at the quarter of the century.
So
25 years since Y2K.
Which there's going to be a movie, Y2K, by A24. If it's a horror movie, you might have to cover it.
Oh, God, that's true. Well, as Fredo said, Task Force, thank you all so much. Very excited to be able to see 2025 as an independent company.
Yep.
And that's all thanks to you guys. Thank you very much. And Fredo, Happy New Year. I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.
Hey, Happy New Year, everybody.
Fireworks sounds.